Okay, kindergarten, we are going to do part 2 really quick while part 1 is still drying. So right now, what we're going to do is we are going to draw a horizon line. A horizon line is the line that separates the land from the sky. Sometimes it can be flat, sometimes it can be hilly. On your paper, you're going to notice on the left-hand side, I have a black dot, and on the right-hand side, I also have a black dot. We want to make sure that for this project that our horizon line is starting at dot number 1 and stopping at dot number 2. You'll use a pencil. Again, if you want your horizon line to be perfectly straight, that's totally fine. If you want it to be more hilly, you will do a curved line. One thing that we want to make sure that we're not doing is making our hills go all the way to the top of our paper. We want to leave just as much room up top for the sky as we're going to have for the land on the bottom. So I'm going to start on my dot. I'm going to have just a little hill. And I'm going to stop when I get to my second dot. For step number 1, we did the painting technique called wet on dry because we used wet paints and we painted on dry paper. Well, for this next effect, we're going to be using two things that we haven't used this year. We're going to be using wet on wet, and we're also going to be using a little bit of salt to add texture to our painting. Texture is the feel of something, whether it's smooth, bumpy, rough, sharp, soft. To start off, you're going to take your clean brush and your clean water, and in order to do wet and wet, not only do we need wet paints, but we also need wet paper. I'm going to take my brush and dip it in the water, and I am going to paint my sky, anything above my horizon line, with just my wet paintbrush. So I'm getting anything above my horizon line wet right now. And I'm just painting with water. Again, if you notice that your brush is starting to get dry, go ahead and dip, add some more water. You'll notice that your paper is going to start curling up. That's okay, don't worry about it. We can go ahead and knock it back down later. So now that you have wet paper, you can go ahead and use wet paint. Our sky is going to be blue, so we'll be using blue paint. Okay, kindergarten, now that you have your sky painted wet on wet, it is really wet. Not only are the paints wet, but we also got the paper wet too. Our foreground, the part that's closest to us, we're going to leave white because hopefully sooner than later we're going to have some snow, and this is going to be a winter landscape. Now I said we were going to go ahead and use some salt for this next part. So every table has a little cup of salt, and you are just going to be taking a small amount in your fingers, and you are going to be sprinkling it over your sky. Try not to stay in one spot. You want to go ahead and you want to go all over. You want to make sure you're filling up the whole sky with little specks of salt. What you're going to start noticing is that the salt is going to start soaking up some of that water and some of that paint, and it's going to create this nice little texture effect of snow that we'll be able to wipe off later once it's dry. So once you've covered your entire sky with salt, we're going to go ahead and take it and place it on the drying rack right away.